So hello and thank you everyone for coming along today to our little webinar about social prescribing. So I've got Eleanor Barnard here with me, who's our lead GP, and she's going to just introduce herself and just give a little bit of information about the PCNs and about what social prescribing means to the PCNs and to her, and then I'll go through the presentation. So Ellie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. So, hello everybody. Nice to see and meet you all virtually. So I am Ellie Barnard, as Kerry said. I'm a GP locally. I work in Wallington at Manor Practice, and I'm also have a role working for the primary care networks, and I will explain a little bit more about what the primary care networks are in a moment. And part of that job is I am a lead as lead GP in Sutton for social prescribing, to try and champion it, help develop it, and help think about the service and things like that. So I'm really grateful that you guys have asked me to come and just open up. I'm sorry I can't stay for the whole session, but I've got to go off and see a patient. So I thought I just would start briefly by sort of saying what a primary care network is, because they're relatively new, and I know sort of gets bandied around all the time, and we often think, I don't know who that is or what that's about. So essentially, primary care networks are groups of GP surgeries that the NHS asked us to develop in 2019, because recognising a need that we probably need to work better together, a bit more coordinated, and also there are times when we all put our resources together, we can do something better than when we're all trying to do our own thing. The idea being that we might get a better standardisation of health and care across areas, because we're all doing the same thing and it's not potluck based on which surgery you happen to be registered with. So that's where the primary care networks come in. And in Sutton, we have 4 primary care networks, and they're very loosely Wallington, Carshalton, Central Sutton, and Cheam and South Sutton. So it's sort of areas of GPs all working together. And more, the government is putting its NHS funding slowly but growing through those networks to say, actually, it's probably useful for local people to be able to decide what their local health needs are. So that's kind of how the territory is shifting a little bit. And so in line with that, sort of social prescribing has shifted a little bit away from the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, and more into the primary care networks, where it's sort of these primary care-led organisation, which is kind of directing and paying essentially for the service. So that's what the primary care network is. So what is social prescribing? So it's fascinating, really. I have been involved on and off with social prescribing for quite a few years now. When it first started with the pilots a few years ago, and then obviously now I've come back on as the clinical lead. And what I've learned is that nobody, or very few, some people know what social prescribing is, but a lot of people don't, and a lot of people involved with it don't really know either, or people think they do. It's a nationally set name, isn't it, social prescribing, and it's not the best. I don't know, don't know what I would have chosen, but I don't necessarily know I'd have chosen that, but it doesn't necessarily help. So what social prescribing means for us in primary care, I think, is it's a link. It's a link between us in health, who know about health things and are trained in health things, and the wider community, the wider society, of saying, actually, a lot of these things that you're struggling with, actually, they're not really a health problem, and it's not really something I know very much about and I'm quite ignorant about, but actually there's a whole load of people out there who could help, who do understand what you're going through and have got some experience and some expertise to help you. And social prescribing provides that link. So social prescribers are not there to give everybody the answers. They're not there to be trained in managing benefits, getting back to work, specialist services for children with learning disabilities. That's not what social prescribers are. The social prescribers are trained to be that link, that conduit through which people in health can say, I need help, help my patient for me, and we're shifting calling people residents and not patients. I'm working on that one. And so that's where social prescribing is. So what social prescribing isn't is a counsellor or somebody to solve everybody's problems. It's not a youth centre or a drop-in centre. It's not an activity centre. It's not somewhere that, you know, it's not like they've got a pot of money that they can give to different activities. They are link workers to link people in with all the other amazing work that goes on in Sutton. And, you know, I've been involved with primary care and with mental health for a few years now in Sutton, and I'm always amazed about how much amazing community work is going on in Sutton and how much phenomenal work is happening out in the community with it's all of you guys here who are doing it. You're dealing, you know, right on the cold front with residents. You know what the issues are. You know how to support people in your ways, and link workers for me are that golden link with you to get the right support for my patients when I can't do anything, basically. So I think that summarises what social prescribing is. I think that summarises the role of the primary care network, and hopefully just a little opportunity for me to say thank you to all of you here for everything you're doing for our residents and the amazing work that you do to support people. So thank you. Is that all right, Kerry? Was there anything else you wanted me to add or mention that I have forgotten to mention?
No, that's fantastic as an intro. Thank you so much, Ellie. Okay, so I'm just going to switch my view so I can see the presentation. So I completely forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, which is classic me, so apologies for that. My name is Kerry and I am the head of social prescribing Sutton. So if we can just move on to the next slide then. Oh, if we go back one, there we go. So I won't repeat exactly what Ellie has kindly said, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate some of the key messages there, particularly for us. So what's really important for us is that social prescribing is not duplicating anything that already exists. Rather, we're that bridge between our colleagues in health and the wider community. There's a lot of expertise already in the community and we really want to kind of maximise those assets there. So our team is made up of link workers who can help patients or clients, as we call them within the service, to feel more in control of their lives and to feel better equipped to self-manage their health and other matters that might be going on. We can support them to identify what their goals are, what their priorities are, what barriers they might be facing, and help to kind of tailor an action plan that addresses some of those. Connecting them with the community for support, for advice, for information, leisure, etc. And developing other tools to kind of support sustainable self-management of health and well-being. Just next slide, please. So our service, Social Prescribing Sutton, then is all adult service, so 18 plus, and it's for anyone who's registered with a Sutton GP. So a few of our clients don't have the Sutton postcode, but that's fine because they're on the border as long as they're registered with that Sutton GP. And there are two strands to our service. So the bulk of what we do is the kind of direct PCN referrals, so coming straight from the GP. And that will be somebody who will be matched with the link worker allocated to their area. We also have an MDT service, so we have two of our link workers working with that, which I can expand upon in a little while. But essentially, they work jointly with clinicians for those patients who might have more kind of complex situations going on that could benefit from having both their medical and non-medical needs looked at the same time. So the service Social Prescribing Sutton is delivered in partnership with GPs then and with the wider voluntary and community sector. The consortium Sutton together govern the development of the service and chose Age UK as the lead partner within this. And we also have our main delivery partner of Sutton Carers Centre, who provide the external supervision for our link workers. Within our steering group, we have Age UK Sutton, we have Sutton Carers Centre, Community Action Sutton, Sutton Health Watch and Volunteer Centre Sutton as well. Next slide, please. So it really is a partnership with the community as well as with the GPs and kind of wider health sector. So our vision then for the service is to, as I say, act as that bridge between health and the community and empower people to achieve these positive, long-lasting changes in areas that matter most to them. So very much a sort of person-centered and holistic service. And our mission is that we provide this for the community of Sutton and supporting patients to take back control of their lives and achieve their health and wellbeing goals, self-identified ones. Next slide, please. So as I say, it's for adults age 18 plus. We can work with carers and partners and family members as well. Excuse me. And if that is the case, if, for example, we're working with somebody and they're caring for a partner, for example, who might benefit from that one-to-one support from a link worker as well, we do have a team of link workers, so we can accept another referral for that family so that their individual needs are met, but we have that joined up team approach to make sure that everything's kind of cohesive there. The easiest way to describe the kind of areas that we can look into with the patient or the client is anything non-medical is the easiest way for me to sum that up. So that could be a combination of practical needs, social and emotional as well. It's really beneficial for those who don't know what's out there that can help them or just don't have that involvement at the time, and we can support them to access that. It's for people who are ready to make a change, even if they don't know what exactly that change looks like, what the first step will be, how they even get started, but they're willing to make that change and they're ready. Then the link worker can support with everything else and kind of planning and preparing for that. And we often receive sort of referrals for those who are frequent attenders or callers to health services. And quite a lot of the time that is people who are incredibly anxious, or find that their health conditions are being impacted by things going on in their lives that go beyond kind of the medical symptoms that they're experiencing. So, for example, if they're in unstable housing or worried about their benefits or worried about sort of a breakdown of family dynamics that could be impacting on their long-term conditions. And as I say, we have that other strand to our service, which is the MDT, multidisciplinary team service. So that is where a couple of our link workers will work in partnership with the clinicians to address the non-medical and medical needs, having that joined up approach. We do have some exclusion criteria, and Ellie did touch upon some of those things that we're not. So we're not an urgent response service. So we're not really suitable for those people that are experiencing crises, whether that's an emotional mental health crisis or whether that's more of a practical crisis. For example, the pipes are leaking, for example, and they're being flooded at this very moment. Because of the nature of the engagement with our service and the kind of expectations we have around that, it's not really suitable for those who are experiencing uncontrolled addictions at the current time, or who have got high level or uncontrolled needs around mental health or learning disability, for example. So it could be that our service is more suitable once they've got that initial support and things are being managed and kind of controlled, they can then start to access our service. We also need to be aware of any risk factors. As I say, we're not a mental health specialist service, and there is an element of lone working, so we need to be aware of that as well. Next slide, please. So how does it work? A lot of words describing what it is, who it's for, but what do we actually do? So once we receive the referral from the GP or clinician, we'll get in touch with the patient within a week or 2 weeks, depending on which strand of the service that they're accessing. But for most people, they'll get that call within 5 working days of the referral form being received. The link worker who is assigned to that PCN will call and introduce themselves and do that initial kind of assessment over the phone. Or for some people, we can have that face-to-face first appointment if that's necessary. The assessment tool that we use then is what we call a PCAP, which is a person-centered assessment tool. And within that, we incorporate several questions that are designed to help monitor the person's well-being and general kind of overall sort of health. And that's using a combination of ONS4 and LEAF7 questions for those who are aware of what that is, but if you're not, essentially it is about different areas of the person's life, kind of monitoring how satisfied they feel with them and kind of seeing if there's been any change. And we try to be as flexible as possible to fit around that person's circumstances and their needs as well. So whether they need remote support, whether face-to-face is better or a combination, whether they require more regular check-ins or not, we try to work as flexibly as possible during that kind of assessment, as well as the ongoing support and discharge back to GP as well. Next slide, please. And this lovely, colourful but confusing diagram is our social prescribing pathway. I won't go into it too much detail because there's a lot there. But essentially what it really shows is that it's not a straight line A to B with any kind of human being, really, or very rarely. And this just kind of reflects that our flexible nature means that we can kind of support people through those bumps and those ups and downs and going back to point A and starting again, or changing perhaps the goal if needs be, to try and fit around the changes that life's throwing in their path. But we will work with someone one-to-one over a period usually of about 2 to 3 months, of up to 6 appointments, before then either discharging them back to the GP support or onto a more specialist service if that's more appropriate. Next slide, please. So our first year, so we're in our second year at the moment. We've just completed our very first year of delivery of a very interesting first year. As everyone will be aware, life has not gone exactly to plan over the past year for any of us, with COVID and the lockdowns, the restrictions, the uncertainty about what the near future is going to look like, let alone long term. But despite that, we've had some really great successes in our first year and some really great support from GPs as well as from the wider community. So we've been able to engage all of the practices across the 4 PCNs. And we've received over 800 referrals within our first year. Of those referrals, 83% took up the service. Those who didn't, it could be because they've had a change of circumstances, maybe their needs have changed, maybe their health has changed, maybe they've gone back into hospital, or it could be that they're not eligible for the service. And we've done quite a lot of work with GPs over the past few months, just helping them to understand what social prescribing is and who might be suitable for referral. We've been able to see improvement across all of the wellbeing areas that we're monitoring overall for our first year, and noticed that the main kind of needs that we're seeing, over half of people have identified mental health and wellbeing as being one of their primary needs for support, followed by social isolation and loneliness, and then housing and finance matters as well. We've also seen that patients report a decrease in their unscheduled use of GP and emergency services as well. Next slide, please. So this lovely colourful pie chart just gives you a bit more of an idea of some of the other things that we look at with people. So as I say, mental health and wellbeing is one of the main things that we've seen. But other reasons could be around sort of learning coping strategies and management strategies for their health conditions. It could be around practical help. So for example, adaptations around the home. It could be for advice and support and information around caring duties or receiving care. It could be around finding activities, which sadly there hasn't been a lot of that available over the past year. Or it could be around other things such as work, volunteering, family relationships, and things like that as well. Next slide, please. This slide is just to sort of illustrate some of the great kind of community assets that we are able to tap into. So as I say, we don't have the funding to recreate anything or to produce anything ourselves at this stage, but we are very much about acting as that bridge and helping people to access what's already out there in the community already. So that can include advocacy, information and advice, debt and money management, counselling and therapies, befriending, food banks and shopping services, volunteering opportunities, and referrals and signposting across the different sectors, really. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been really pleased with seeing that average improvement across all of the wellbeing areas that we monitor. So the biggest improvements we've seen have been in people's overall satisfaction with their lives, and also around feeling safe and secure within their home environment and feeling better able to manage their health conditions. We have seen improvements in other areas as well, although they've not been as great. And the smallest changes we've seen have been in living life the way you choose, doing what's important to you, and having enough social contact, which is sadly as expected given the nature of the past year. So we'll be really interested to see how that changes as we move into year two, and hopefully, touch wood, as we move out of lockdown, away from these restrictions, and we start seeing more opportunities opening up within the community. Next slide, please. This is just some of the feedback that we included in our end of year report. So we've been really fortunate, as I say, to have some great support from the community as well as from the GPs within the 4 PCNs. And so this is just kind of illustrating some of that feedback that we've received. So from the GPs, what they really appreciated was learning more about what resources are out there, learning more about what's in the community that can help their patients and that can impact long term on their patients' health and well-being. They've received really good feedback from their patients that they have referred in, and really appreciated that we're able to offer that time and that space for people to talk about what's important to them. Some of the feedback that we've received from the clients within our service has included things like, I felt like I was sinking and your actions helped me to swim again, which really kind of illustrates that we're not there to do things for people. We're there to help them, to empower them, to kind of manage things sustainably for themselves. So that's our aim, or one of our aims. Somebody else really appreciated having someone to speak to outside of the GP, to talk about things that interest them and are important to them, and to help them to explore some non-medical alternatives to managing their health condition. And for somebody else, it was about giving them the confidence to engage with the outside world again, which has helped them mentally as well as kind of physically with their health. And I really liked this quote at the end there, helped me to make the move from being a patient to a person, which I think is really, really valuable. Next slide, please. So drawing to the end of this presentation, and then there'll be a chance for question and answers in a moment. So our planning for year two, as I say, we're very excited, as I'm sure everybody else is, or very hopeful anyway, that we'll start seeing some new opportunities start emerging or existing start opening up again within the community. So one of the things that we've really kind of felt the loss of over the past year has been those kind of groups and activities and services that have the most impact for people face to face. With the move to things being provided online or to being over the phone, that flexibility has really, really helped some people, but others, they found it much harder to engage with that. So we'll be really interested to see what starts opening up in the near future and how that impacts on people that we're seeing coming into our service. So we're going to continue to support GPs with the vaccine programme and vaccine hesitancy, kind of pointing them in the right direction for information and advice. We'll be doing more outreach within the community and just trying to be more visible within the community. We're also starting with our clinic-based working as well. So my hope is that that will be really helpful for patients who want to see the link worker face-to-face, want to talk about things that are confidential to them, so can't be in a public setting, but for whatever reason, the home environment isn't suitable. So we can offer home visits, but sometimes where there's a level of risk involved, or perhaps where there's some difficulties with maybe like a partner relationship, for example, going into that trusted and familiar GP setting really works for some people. It's all about trying to be as flexible as we possibly can. And also increasing sort of community referral options, which will improve patient support and outcomes as well. We are going to be mindful of the impact the past year's had on people, as well as the impact of moving back into what many of us consider normal life. There's been a lot of talk about potential social anxiety with the return to normal, so just getting used to being around people again. The impact that the past year's had on people's physical health, where we're not moving or we haven't been moving around as much, and for those that have been more housebound because of shielding, for example. So there'll be a lot of focus on perhaps improving strength, balance, fitness, and overall mobility, improving sort of social opportunities and support options for people, as I've said, and also keeping an eye on long COVID and the effects that that's having on people, and how social prescribing might be able to play a role in supporting the self-management of that condition. So next slide, please. So just thought I'd end it with one of our case studies. So this is just a story about a patient where we've taken the main identifying information away, just to sort of try and put some of this into context and sort of illustrate and humanize what we're doing. So it's not just facts and figures and numbers for you. So we have been involved in the virtual wards over the past few months. So this is a, as it says, really a virtual ward for people that need the kind of, who are quite vulnerable because of their health and would benefit from sort of more frequent monitoring by the health services. And social prescribing have been getting involved to support those patients who perhaps see their social needs as more of a block to moving forwards and would benefit from some support from us before they then focus back on their health needs again. So in this case, there was a gentleman in his 50s who had ongoing health issues since kind of recovering from COVID and coming out of hospital, and it needed further medical input, but there was some issues around compliance. Was feeling incredibly and just really kind of low moods, but not willing to sort of engage further with health services at that point. He was, however, very open to discussing what else was going on in his life and his non-medical needs that he saw as a priority at that point. It was challenging to engage with him initially. Another new service that was hard for him and felt quite overwhelming. There was that lack of trust, as I say, but he did have a good relationship with the clinician who'd already carried out a home visit. So we were able to make the most of that joint approach and tag along and get our foot in the door that way, and start building up that relationship with that patient, start building up that trust and that rapport, so that he did feel ready to open up to us. We were also really benefited from that joint approach with the clinician, that they had that insight and that experience that they could offer and offer to us, so that we could keep that in mind. So we completed our PCAT, our assessment, and talked holistically about his life and what was important to him, touching upon his family's caring duties, money, and work worries. So all things that were really at the forefront of his mind, despite the fact that he was also recovering from a stay in hospital and COVID at the time as well. Next slide, please. So opening up to us, he was able to tell us that coming back from hospital, recovering from his illness, he wasn't able to work at the moment. He was really worried about the impact that that was having on his finances and his home life, his family, and also trying to manage his health condition whilst also being a carer for his partner as well. We gave him that time and that space to explore what was important to him, how it was impacted on his health, and supporting him to kind of link in with services that might be able to help. We're also able to offer that whole family support by involving a second link worker to work with the partner, so that their individual needs could be addressed, so that they could talk about honestly how they were feeling without worrying about the impact on their partner being there, but that together we could make sure it was joined up and complemented each other. So we helped make sure that he felt always at the heart of all the decision making, giving him back that sense of control, that choice, and helping him to recognise the distance travelled on his journey and the progress that he'd made already. It did take time, but with that whole family support, with the support from the clinicians as well, and being able to work flexibly and offer him that time and space, he was able to open up and engage with the service, getting that wraparound support, with referrals being made for financial advice, for information and advice around health services, and even to signpost him to some wellbeing support, which initially he was absolutely certain he didn't want to talk about his mental health. He didn't want to talk about his well-being. He just wanted to focus on practical matters. But actually, after a few weeks with us talking about different areas of his life, he came to realize that actually he needed to give some time and some space for his well-being as well. So we were really happy to kind of see that shift there. So that is me finished, I believe. I don't think there's any more slides. Charlotte, can you just double check for me? Yeah, thumbs up. So that is me done. So can we stop sharing the slides so that we can see everyone? Okay. So any questions from anyone about that, or anything that you'd like to know more about? Oh, we've got some hands up. Let's have a look. So we've got El Devani, Ada from JCP Mitcham.
Hi, my name's Aida.
Aida.
Hi. So I've been a disability advisor in Merton for the last 10 years, but now I'm sort of going to be taking over leading a much bigger team of disability advisors in Sutton and Merton. And as you know, I've been working closely with the social prescribers in Merton since I think 2019. And I suppose what I'm saying is that I'd really like to replicate that kind of close working links with the social prescribers, because often you do have cases where they need advice about their benefits, or looking to do some training, or need some specialist employability, so that we could, because sometimes we are the gatekeepers to getting people into services that are specific to people with disabilities or health conditions. So it's just about introducing ourselves really and saying, on your list of people that you work with and refer to, I think DWP should be on there.
Yeah,
That's
and we've met with Carolyn McLeod, who I
Yes,
think
good.
on this call as well.
Good.
And she's been really kind enough to offer her time. Hey, Carolyn.
Good.
Come to team meetings to meet the link workers and such like. So yeah, thank you. And I think it's just so essential that we are aware of what's going on with each other's services, because you're right, quite often that person will open up to us and tell us lots of things that they might not have told anybody else before, and it's who has that trusted relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Sorry.
Who else have we got? So we've got Ivana. Hello, from Care Centre.
Hi, everyone. So at the Care Center, I mean, I know Age UK also has the Wellbeing Navigators, as well as the Sutton Care Center. We have our own Wellbeing Navigators. So I guess one of the things that I'm slightly unclear about is it seems that the model is very similar. So a Wellbeing Navigator works with somebody for 6 weeks, and the social prescriber works with somebody up to 6 sessions. And you said that 50% of the people that the social prescribers support is a mental health thing. So at what point would you refer to a well-being navigator if it's a mental health condition and they're kind of housed within Uplift to kind of focus on that?
So people identify the main kind of needs that they'd like to focus on, and our job is to help them to figure out what exactly they'd like to change about that, and then what services are out there that can support them with that. So we don't support them with their mental health needs. So we would absolutely be making the most of Uplift, Sutton Mental Health Foundation, and other services, depending on what that person's looking to engage with, whether it's talking therapies or whether it's more about just having that website, that useful link and that information to look at in their own time. So I don't know if that helps or not. So yes, we do work with people for a similar amount of time, but we don't provide that mental health support. So we would link in with someone like Uplift.
Correct. I guess I'm just trying to figure out, because I know that, and if there's any other well-being navigators on the call, they can step in and clarify, but I'm kind of under the impression that the well-being navigators also kind of do a little bit with what social prescribers do, where if there are other kind of needs, they will meet it with a focus on the mental health. So I'm just wondering if there is some kind of protocol where if somebody says that there's a mental health need initially, that they would be almost immediately then referred out to the well-being navigator. So there's kind of avoidance of duplication of services, because they do kind of, I think if when you see a well-being navigator, they will look at your holistic, how are you in terms of your work and all that stuff. So is there maybe a quicker path to the well-being navigator, so that the social prescriber then does not have to do all 6 sessions with the person, and then the well-being navigator takes that person's case on from a well-being perspective?
I think two things to that question. I think first of all, social prescribing is a fancy term, but it's something that the majority of us have been doing for years, really, working holistically, supporting people to access what's out there that best meets their needs. So we've all been doing something similar for a long time, and it's really valuable and it really works. So we will always try, as social prescribing link workers, we'll always try to make the most of what's out there and absolutely, like you say, not duplicate services. So if somebody comes to us and their mental health is the biggest need that they have, and it's something that's blocking them from moving forward and engaging with anything else, then it might be that going to, say, like a wellbeing navigator might be more appropriate for that individual, and then coming back to us. So where we can, we will work with other professionals within the community. So that happens quite often, where someone will start to engage with us, will identify that actually the mental health is really kind of the primary need that needs to be sort of addressed before they look at anything else. So it's about what's the most appropriate support for them. So I agree, yeah, working in partnership and making sure we don't duplicate is really essential. Any other questions? Ada, is that a old hand?
Sorry, I'm just lowering it.
That's okay, don't worry. Getting used to Zoom and Teams and all these different things. Will French?
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Will. I work for Cultural Services, which is the borough's libraries and heritage house provision. There's so much talk within our sectors about how we can support social prescribing. There's a huge amount in kind of the role that culture obviously can have in supporting well-being and mental health. I suppose what I'm really interested in is what kind of things can we do quite quickly to kind of set things up? I mean, I've heard about kind of talking benches, those kinds of things. I mean, is there someone that we can kind of liaise with to try and get some kind of quick, smaller things? I'm just, it's kind of, I suppose it's like we've got lots of ideas, but we just want to know what's going to be most helpful for this borough's kind of like health needs. You've obviously mentioned there's a kind of older demographic, and that kind of influences it a lot. But yeah, I suppose it's kind of like what help can we get from AGK in setting up services that are like low cost and basically kind of quite quick wins, to use that phrase.
Yeah, I think Nicola's got some experience here, so I'll just bring her in.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm the Chief Exec of AGK Sutton. I'll answer that one because that's probably a broader question that's about working with AGK Sutton rather than with Social Prescribing Sutton, which is an all adults service, which we are the contract holder for. So the kind of stuff that you're describing is outside of the scope of social prescribing. Social prescribing is what Kerry's been describing. We'd be really happy to have a conversation with you, Will, about stuff that we can do jointly if you want to particularly focus on working with older people. I think talking generally, any kind of interventions like things like talking benches or services or activities, what we, and I think all of our colleagues here from the voluntary and community sector and elsewhere are really interested in is working in an evidence-based way. So really looking at what's needed in Sutton, consulting with people who live in our local communities about what's going to make the biggest difference to them. And as Ivona kind of highlighted a moment ago, really making sure we're not duplicating what's already happening. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to talk about working together generally across the borough. You might want to talk to Community Action Sutton as well about engaging with the voluntary and community sector, because I think they are a really useful gateway to the VCS and provide us all with infrastructure and convening support. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah,
it's not a social prescribing answer, and in a sense it's not a social prescribing question. So yeah,
just because so you're aware, we do fall under the Public Health and Wellbeing Directorate, so we do also want to contribute to that basically within the borough, as you say, in a more evidence-based way. I'd be really interested to chat with someone in more detail, because the other really good thing that we can get is a lot of really good qualitative feedback from our participants, which I know is often really helpful in
Yeah, that sounds like, I think Charlotte, who you've been in communication with about this, if you drop her a line, she can help you arrange to talk to someone relevant, either myself or our services director, Hilary. Thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Lily?
Hi.
Hello.
I'm a wellbeing navigator at Sutton Carer Centre and Sutton Uplift. And I was just wondering, because we have quite long waiting lists, especially at Uplift. And on one of your slides, you said you don't really have a big waiting list. So just wondering how that has been managed.
Magic. I think one of the benefits of our service is that we can work flexibly. So some people would require contact every week, for example, whereas some people, because of work or caring commitments, maybe once a fortnight might be more helpful, or depending on the level of support that they require, how in depth the work is. So one of the benefits of working that flexibly means that we're more easily able to kind of like fit people in with different sort of needs, and it quite complements each other. So in our first year, amazingly, we didn't need to kind of implement any waiting lists at all, or any sort of delays to delivery, which we've been really fortunate about. In April, we had, for one of our PCNs, we had a 2-week waiting list, just for those 2 weeks, and that's all we've needed to do so far this year. Touching wood, not wanting to jinx anything, but I think it, yeah, the benefit is just the flexibility that we have kind of these guidelines. So we work with people for up to 6 sessions, but we appreciate that real life isn't as straightforward as that. So for some people it might only be a couple of sessions are needed, you know, for some people it might be a little bit more. So I think that has enabled us to continue delivering the service without any waiting lists at the moment. We're just a little less structured in that sense.
Thank you.
That's okay. But yeah, also magic. Caroline?
Yes. Oh, hello. Sorry.
Hello.
Hi. Yes. I'm Will's colleague, actually. So hi, Will. Yeah. I'm the volunteer officer for Sutton Cultural Services. So my interest is, I know volunteering got mentioned as an option. Sorry, can you hear me? It's frozen. Yeah. Oh, you can. Okay. Sorry, yeah. Your image is frozen. So I was just obviously volunteering, you know, as we all know, has multiple benefits. So I was just wondering how the link workers know what volunteering opportunities are in the community. Do they link up with Sutton Volunteer Centre directly, or would it be useful for me to update the link workers about what vacancies we may have?
So both with that. So yeah, we don't keep track of every single volunteering opportunity within the community, because that would just be too big a job, but we link in with people that do. So Sutton Volunteer Centre, for example, we're often in touch with them to just kind of find out what's available and signposting or referring people that way. But some services do contact us directly to keep us updated with what's going on. So more than happy to kind of receive any updates from you about opportunities that you have, and I flag that then up with the team and share that internally.
So who would I contact then? Is there
me?
General? Oh, okay.
Yeah, would be the
Right.
easiest person.
Right, brilliant. Okay.
After this session, we'll do a follow-up email with everyone who's signed up to attend, just with a bit of information about how to get in touch.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I can't see any other hands, but feel free to just chip in if anyone's got any other questions. That's nice and easy, isn't it? Is there anything else that I've mentioned that maybe needs a bit of clarity, or that you'd like more information on, or even if you'd like to kind of meet at a different time to talk more in depth about any of the aspects we touched upon? I will take that as a no. Well, as Nicola says, we will be sending around an email afterwards, just with how to get in touch. So when we come off this call, if a light bulb moment suddenly happens, more than happy to receive any email queries as well. Caroline, is that just an old hand, that one? Oh, yeah. Nicola, anything that you want to add?
I think just really, I can say a couple of words to wrap up if you want, Kerry. Yeah, so firstly, thank you so much everyone for coming. We've got 26 attendees here today, which is it's really great to have this many people. We know there's a really high level of interest in social prescribing, what the service is, how it's been going in its first year, and you know, it's really great to see such a wide range of people here from different organisations and services across the borough. So firstly, thank you for giving us your time. And yeah, big thanks to Carrie. I've seen that presentation, I think about 200 times now, and I never get tired of it, especially the feedback from the patients and the case study information, which I think really brings it to life. And I just really want to echo what Carrie said, that we are very keen to answer questions about social prescribing. If you want to clarify anything, if you want to understand more about what it is or how it's operating at the minute, and because it isn't always that obvious, and social prescribing means such different things in different places, we're really conscious of that. Kerry's not had time to kind of go through in immense detail the exact model and the way that we designed that. But I know that she would, I'm committing you to this now, Carrie, I know she'd be really happy to talk to anyone who wants a more kind of technical discussion about the model at your leisure. So please do get in touch if that's something that you or your organisation would find useful. And I think as this is a largely voluntary and community sector event, it's just worth saying as well that you know, with other work that's happening, with developments at London Borough of Sutton, with developments in health, we are keeping a very close eye as the contract holder on how social prescribing is being seen as a contributor to various different services, and making sure it's very clear what is resourced and what isn't. And also that if we want to expand the social prescribing offer to the borough, that goes back to the Sutton Together group, which appointed Age UK Sutton to lead this contract, for discussion about the best way that the voluntary and community sector can respond to any future opportunities. So some of you here will know that there's some conversations happening at the moment with some potential intentions from LBS and other parts of health to start commissioning social prescribing. And I just want to reassure you that Age UK Sutton doesn't know any more than anybody else. And if we find anything out, we will make sure that we're sharing that information with our partners. It's also just worth saying a special thank you to, I think, all of our delivery partners, but particularly to Community Action Sutton and Health Watch Sutton and Volunteer Centre, who've been really involved in the steering group which governs social prescribing development, and also Sutton Carer Centre, who, as Kerry said, are our delivery partner, supporting development and also providing external supervision. And this is why the voluntary and community sector is so good at delivering contracts like this, because we are really good at working together and pooling our collective expertise and resources. So huge thank you to all of you who were involved in giving us the opportunity at Age UK Sutton to deliver this all adults contract, and particular thanks to those who've put enormous amounts of time and energy in over the last couple of years to get us to this very successful point where we are now. I can see that David's got his hand up, so David, I might let you have the last word.
Well, not
That's what
necessarily.
you're going to say, actually.
No, I would say so far so very good, but mine's more of a practical issue in terms of the way we are getting back into a more ordered way of life. The probability is that more and more people will be coming forward with issues that need to be looked at and sorted out. What is the practical strength of the social prescribers in numbers, and what plans are there to increase those numbers across all the PCNs in Sutton?
Shall I take that one, Kerry? Because I think I might know more than you do. So there are 6 link workers at the moment, plus Kerry. In terms of any intentions for expansion, the simple answer is we don't know that. We don't know. So the primary care networks, we know, do have the option to use the funds that they have for various things. They may or may not choose to invest in further link workers. We don't know that yet. And also other parties, so including public health. So some of you again will know that Imran Chowdhury has talked about potentially getting involved in development. There's a lot of things being said at the moment, but no concrete intentions have been shared. So we'll see. And you're right. You know, I think, as Carrie alluded to, we don't have a waiting list at the minute, which is remarkable and probably down to magic, as she said. But that as GPs become more used to the service, and as the situation changes, you're right, we may well find ourselves with a higher level of demand. So I guess watch this space.
Thank you.
Do expect to see more referrals coming through in the next year, but one of our hopes is that the level of complexity of the referrals will possibly be less, or even if not, there'll be more support available. So the link workers will be holding on to people for less time than they've needed to over the past year. So we're hoping that that will kind of help as well to ensure that we keep on moving forwards. Any other final questions or thoughts that have just suddenly popped into your heads? And Hilary, anything that you'd like to add as well? I've noticed that you're here.
No, I've just been sitting quietly listening to everything, so no, nothing for me to add. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can draw that to a close then. And if there are any other things, like we say, please do not hesitate to drop us an email, no matter how small the question.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Really great to see you. And yeah, as Kerry said, please do get in touch if there's anything you want to talk about. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye,
Cheers.
everyone.
Bye.